Good afternoon, all, and namaskaram. Welcome to the panel discussion. I really appreciate all of you for being here today. And to our viewers, we have our distinguished panelists here today who bring in their unique perspectives that help us to understand better about the topic, what makes Thyagaraja's compositions distinctive. As an overview, we all know Thyagaraja is regarded as the most popular of the Trinity, one of the great immortal saint, poet, and philosopher of the world. His compositions and the range of ragas exemplify the richness in raga bhava and thala, making his compositions soul-stirring, limitless, and poignant, expressing his devotion or bhakti for Lord Rama. The compositions portray his prolific and captivating melody, structure, and the lyrics or sahityas, yet brings in a certain simplicity that even a person with no or less training in classical music can appreciate his compositions. I want to start this discussion from the pre-Trinity era. So I think we see a very radical change in terms of the compositions, their structure, and the use of melody before the Trinity era and at the onset of the Trinity era. So I would like to request each of you to share your perspectives on this.
Distinctly, if you look at the pre-Trinity era during the Purandaradasa and Annamaya time, 15th century, you actually see that there is a structural change in the musical form. You have what is known as a kirtana, krithi and kirtana, they are distinctly two different musical forms. And it was the bhakti era where if you look the dhatu or the metta, which we call, is the same for all the musical tuning is the same for all the charanas or all the paragraphs that is there in the composition, and it was meant for congregational singing and more of bhakti, so that more people can join in. And it is usually seen in the Bhajana Sampradaya. Purandaradasa Devar Namas have the same tune in all charanas, very simple tunes, to be able so that the mass can actually join. But as the Trinity age came in, the 18th century is known as the golden age, where the krithi form actually brought to shape. The pallavi, anupallavi structure of a composition came into shape. So I'll let the others join in
I
and
mean,
add their
very well put. I would just like to add on to that. So, this Kriti format that we do see, I feel like in what I've observed, Tyagaraja has this perfect mix. So he has managed to kind of marry the old with the new. You do see the Kirtana format in some of his compositions as well. You have the Divyanama Kirtana, you have the Utsava Sampradaya Kirtanas, where you also have this repetitive dhatu, like Vidyaji was saying. And then you also have the Kriti format, which was by far popularized by Thyagaraja. Not to say that Thyagaraja was the only one who adopted the Kriti format. You did have other composers like, Shyama Shastri, but I would say Shyama Shastri also had similar dhatus for all of his charanas. You had Muthuswami Dikshithar, who had a different kind of, pattern for his kritis. But this extremely kind of prolific pattern that Thyagaraja imbibed. So he had this Pallavi and Anupallavi, and in the Charanam, you would see in several cases that the last two lines of the Charanam would mimic the same tune as the Anupallavi itself. So this is an observation that you see for several of Tyagaraja's kritis, and it has inspired several composers in the post-Trinity era as well. So he is a trailblazer of sorts, is what I'd say.
Absolutely, isn't it? I think the Trinity understood the aesthetics of the music system as such, if I may humbly say so.
And I think if we go even before Annamaya and Purandaradasa and all, when we think about, for example, Nayanars or in that sense, the Devarams and all, the structure, the purpose was quite centered, as Vidyaji said, around congregational singing. So the importance was centered around lyrics, around lyrical patterns that will be easy to sort of follow. And I won't say raga was downplayed, but simplicity of tunes was sort of where, that's why the pun was used more than elaboration of ragas. So some of the pre-Trinity eras also had the flavors around where music had a flavor towards more how to engage the society as a way, and how to build sort of a center around emotions, which we definitely now talk about, the Bhakti era in a way. And with the onset of the Trinities, that took an additional form where, okay, there was a lot more room to start elaborating, a lot more room to bring individuality. So which I'm sure we'll talk about subsequently.
Sure.
So what I feel is like, so before pre-Trinity era, so there was like a gathering of a mass audience. So into the Bhakti era. So like Vidya Madam has said that there is a Bhajana Sampradaya. So okay, clapping together and singing all together, and the emphasis of lyrics was more. So what I feel is Trinity as a bridge. So Trinity of the music, and so all the three were acting as a bridge. So they are having kirtanas. So what I say that Thyagaraja has a set of kritis for all kinds of music people. If you are a bhajan singer, you do have Divyanama and Utsav Sampradaya Kirtanams. Yes, if you are into more deep into music, there are several majestic compositions are there that emphasize more on the ragam. So what I felt like Saint Thyagaraja has catered to the needs of every kind of a rasika and every kind of a music learner. That's what I feel.
Fantastic. Yeah, I think all of you have shared your valuable inputs here.
I would just like to add to what Umaji said. So she made a very kind of a salient point about, societal and congregational singing and the pre-Trinity and the Tevaram and Pan. And I feel like that also gives us an insight into society itself at that point of time and what music served in society. So was music viewed as more of congregational, or was it viewed as more of a personal experience which was professionally regarded as a concert kind of setting? So that shift, where did that shift happen? And I feel like Trinity's compositions and charting the course of pre-Trinity, Trinity and post-Trinity gives us that perfect trajectory of how music and the status of music evolved in society itself.
Very true. And I think the contributions of the post-Trinity in the sense of, having a complete understanding, each of the Trinity having a complete understanding of our music system and to be able to compose, with such a wide range and variety of structure in their compositions has set a precedent to, as part of every kacheri today. So, and to all the contemporary composers post the Trinity.
Yeah. So, and one more point is like for pre-Trinity, unfortunately, there are many rare ragas that were now become extinct actually. So, if you can see Annamachari composition, there are, so he has composed 32,000 Sankirtanas, out of which around 10,000 are available now. So, there are several other ragas whose names are known, but the structure of the ragam is unknown. So, why? Because since there was not a proper Sishya Parampara, so those compositions and the original tunes have been extinct. And now the TTD has to resort to Annamachari project in 1980s. And then several musicians keep on set on tuning and retuning. But for the Trinity, so thanks to the great vast Sishya Parampara, so that has preserved the original notations. So even though for Thyagaraja, we have three different schools, Valasbet, Umayalapuram, and Telaisthanam. But we should thank every one of us. Why? Because they have preserved the tradition and they have given us this, what we call as a vast asset to the upcoming generations, those who are learning and practicing music.
Very true. Yeah. Now moving on to the next distinct feature with Thyagaraja's compositions in particular as our discussion goes on. The usage of ragas is another distinct feature, I feel, because if you see, Thyagaraja has composed from the most simple to the most complex in his compositions. So there is a gamut of compositions between both the extremes, right? Now he's taken the same ragas, to show their simplicity and their complex structure. For example, capturing a raga through a very small structure and at the same time bringing out the essence of the raga in the most simplest form or in the most complex form. I would really love to hear your views on that. Would somebody like to elaborate on this first?
If you take, for example, Raga Madhimavati, Nagumomu Galavani is a very, very simple composition which has an Ekadhatu structure to it, which has this, all the paragraphs have the same tune. It is another Divyanama Sankirtana of Thyagaraja. And he goes on to, Madhimavati has explored more. If you go to Ramakatha Sutta, which is a very mammoth composition which has elaborate Madhimavati in it. So you can see this big range. The same raga has been employed in a small structure and also in a Vilamba Kalakriti where you have a lot of more scope to explore the raga.
So true.
Many such examples can be taken. Even in Bhairavi, if you look, he has made in Bhairavi Rama Kodanda Rama, Enati Momu. These constant, progression you can see. So, learning all 5 compositions will give you a sort of a, space how to explore the raga in a small structured composition and in a large structured composition.
Very well put, Vidya. Thank you.
Very well put by Vidyaji. I just wanted to add to exactly what she said. So this wide gamut of compositions that we're talking about, I feel like that directly fuels and feeds into our understanding of the raga that we then implement in Manodharma Sangeeta. So for example, the kind of progressions of ragas, the patterns, like we're able to do a 2-minute alapana for something and a 15-minute alapana or even a half-an-hour alapana for something, which I feel is heavily inspired by compositions of varying lengths and difficulties and I'd say intricacies that Thyagaraja has given us. For example, and another important point that I'd like to make is of the trinities, Thyagaraja strictly followed the Sampurna Melakarta Paddhati, which I feel has given us a treasure trove of compositions, because now we almost by far unanimously follow the Sampurna Melakarta system. And if not for Thyagaraja, where would we go for, say, kritis in Kharahara Priya? Or where would we go for kritis in the kind of todi that we sing today, that is most popularly, unanimously sung all over, that we consider today as a todi or a Kharahara Priya? Because Muthuswami Dikshita did not consider Kharahara Priya as a ragam. He considered Sri Ragam as the equivalent to Kharahara Priya. So Thyagaraja is the one who's given us that kind of foundation for the kind of Manodharma Sangeetam expansion, as well as the understanding of ragams that we have today. I would go as far as to say that, in fact.
Fantastic. That's so well said. Yeah.
So actually, Aarti madam has given a very wonderful example that so now Thyagaraja compositions are being a gateway to the Manodharmam Sangeetam for the upcoming generations. But and also Vidya madam has said that the same ragam should do different compositions. So even so, I will take an example of Shankara Bharana ragam. We are having Gatamoha Shritapala is there. That is or Varavina Gana Lola. Those are very simple. Even small kids can sing, like just like the Notaswarams of Dikshita. And we have a great composition like Manasu Swadhina Maina Gananiki, where the expansion, one can see the Vishwarupam of the Ragam Shankara Bharanam. I feel regarding the Ragams handled by Thyagaraja. And also regarding Aarti madam has said that the Ragam Kharahara Priya. So actually, so it was said that the Kharahara Priya was about to be an extinct or rare raga. And then Thyagaraja has brought a life to it. And to add up one point that Thyagaraja has followed the Sampurna Mala system. So in a recent lecture by Vidwan R.K. Sriram Kumar sir, so he has said that both Dikshitar and Thyagaraja know both the schools of music, but they have stick to one form of music. It is not like that Dikshitar does not know this system or Thyagaraja does not have this system. Why? Because if you can see, Nayada Vanchana Sekara was set in the Ragam Navomani. So Thyagaraja did not compose in the Navanitam. Navanitam is Sampurna Malakarta. So correct me if I am wrong. So Thyagaraja has composed Navomani, Nayada Vanchana Sekara.
I think to add to it, one thing that Vidyaji said, which I tend to reflect a lot, and my guru reflects a lot also. We tend to have these sort of classifications, some ragas are pre-main in a concert, some ragas qualify to be sung as a main, some are lighter ragas, some are heavier ragas. And I think to Vidyaji's point, the fact that Thyagaraja has handled compositions where he has demonstrated some of them can be sung in a Divyanama, or they can be taken up as a main. Or they can also be taken up as part of, say, a drama, such as Nauka Charitram, etc. That kind of breaks a little bit of that bias, because I don't know, over a period of time, some of these things have got mutually reinforced. Kamboji cannot be sung after a main. Okay, Bhairavi cannot be sung as a post main. Well, Rama Kodanda Rama can be sung as a post main. And I think the other piece on Thyagaraja, building on what Aarti ji said, he set quite the foundation on how we can build Manodharma. And that especially goes for the Ekaika Raga Kritis, because we don't have much of a source beyond his compositions to see how a Shruti Ranjani or a Kalanidhi, how is it handled? What are the phrases? How really to bring the emotion even in a sort of a short period. So that, I think, is a very significant contribution of Saint Thyagaraja. And I think as a bridge to sort of where we might go next in the panel, what I personally admire while singing Thyagaraja's compositions is the comfort where lyrics and the raga don't have to clash.
Yeah.
So when it's O Rangashai, there is enough space to enjoy the O for coming to Rangashai. And I think that is another way of how he's handled the raga, which is the complementarity with the lyrics, which comes out very beautifully. And I'm sure we'll come to lyrics soon.
So beautifully said, Uma. And I think this is such a very elaborate topic, and I'm sure given the time frame, we would not be able to give full justice. No wonder he's regarded as one of the most immortal composers. And whatever valuable suggestions that we have spoken today, we have shared so far, I'm sure our viewers would have some positive takeaways from this discussion. Thyagaraja has effectively used the alterations in his compositions, because in the South Indian languages, I think there is a unique variation on the alliterations, because we not only apply to the first syllable in each time, but also to the second syllable. All of you are performing musicians, so I think it is important that we hear all your perspectives on this aspect of use of alliterations in his compositions.
To cite a few examples, now this is the Dvitiyakshara prasa, Antya prasa are all prosody that has been prescribed, and all the Trimurti, Carnatic Trimurti were experts in, composition and poetry, and also the compositions, they followed all the musical prosody that was prescribed. So if you actually look at the very common krithi, Sitamma Mayamma, if you see, Sitamma Mayamma, the second and Vatatmaja, Sitamma Mayamma, then Vatatmaja Saumutri. The third is with Dvitiyakshara prasa that is being followed. If you look Vaina Deva, again within the Anupallavi itself, you can see that the prasa is followed very nicely. And this almost every single composition that you see, these alliterations are followed, which adds to aesthetic beauty of the composition, and it makes the song concert worthy. And even if a person is not able to understand the meaning, those Antya prasas and Dvitiyakshara prasa makes the rhythm so attractive that a person, even a layman, can actually enjoy the rhythm of the concert and go with the flow and being magically transported to some other state, and that is the power of the compositions of Thyagaraja.
Absolutely, so well said. Yeah.
I would just again like to add on what Vidyaji said. So these alliterations and this prasa, I feel like in my observation, Thyagaraja has taken it beyond I would say the literary level, and he has taken it to the melodic level. So if you look at Adamodigalade, so we have Adamodigalade, we also have Todunida, so it's Pada Pa Pada Nida. So he's carried forward that rhyme melodically as well. So it's that idea is just flowing and it's unending. So there's no sort of a break between the Pallavi or the Anupallavi. So he has carried forward that melodic prasa as well as the literary prasa as well.
Amazing.
What a beautiful example, Arati. Thank you. Very nice.
There is a composition of Saint Thyagaraja in the Mukhari. So Kshenamai Tirga. So in the Charanam, there is one point is there. Padila Maina Sat Padamu Sange. So here Padila Maina means so Pada and Sat Pada. So Sat Pada means the permanent position. So we see in incarnations, so birth and death happens. So beyond the deeds, one will go to hell, then one will go to hell, again rebirth. So that's what so Thyagaraja stress. Padila Maina Sat Padamu Sange. So means the one path, so which is the beyond it is saying as a so to reside in the place of Lord Rama, so which is a permanent. So there one is free from the cycle of births and deaths. So there I can see that one is a prasa is there. Even in this composition I have earlier mentioned, Manasu Swadhina Maina. So there is a Tapamu Seyaganela and she says Dasharatha Bala. Ela Bala. And if you say Bale in the Bhushani, there also Bale, Shile, so all this prasa will come. So whenever the prasa will come, even for a performing person as well as for a listening person, so I cannot describe that what kind of or what sort of happiness that one will get after listening to those rhyming kind of words. So it is beyond it is beyond saying. So one just have to feel. So then only the sweetness can be heard by users of these alterations.
Absolutely.
And I think to build on that, one of the natural things that we probably observe, and this is of course how a composer goes about composing, but it doesn't feel forced, the use of alliterations. So when we look at Nagu Momo also, Kagaraju, Gagana, Jagamele, Vagajupako, it's very naturally coming, and the lyrics in terms of the meaning also flows. Even this one is full of nice sarcasm in a very sweet way, but it flows in a very beautiful way. And I think Yeduta Nilachite has this one also, right, where he uses the word Tarana Dorakani, there he uses harami. Somehow it's not a natural word in the language, but to me it was like, okay, it's a beautiful alliteration and it conveys what he wants to convey. The emotion came through very beautifully and elegantly. So it's not forced is how I would experience it. It's coming as a way of expression, and that's something I think which not a lot of post Trinity composers, at least where I see, I might experience that this sometimes it feels a bit forced to fit the lyrics, etc.
Right.
Again, I want to build on what Umaji said. Actually, I seem to keep going back to this, probably because something I've been thinking about quite a while now. So on top of this literary prosody that we do see, melodically there seems to be this effortlessness, like Umaji said. So we see so many examples of swarakshara, which is also such a brilliant tool of of melody and integrating melody with the sahitya. So I was recently teaching one of my students Ni Daya Radha, which I don't think there can be a better example. So we have Ni Daya Radha. So we go stop on the da and we start on the ni, but the ni is oscillated, so it doesn't really feel like ni, although it is ni. And the swarakshara is used so beautifully, where the meaning of the term ni daya radha is also conveyed to, I'd say, a non-Telugu speaker would probably be able to gain the meaning of what ni daya radha means. They would gain that karuna rasa which is dripping in that line ni daya radha. And the swaram is also portrayed so beautifully and so simply. It's just ni dama papa magama da. That's it. That's all there is to it. But it's everything that has to be said in that composition, in that line, which is perfectly distilled in that pallavi that we see. So I'd say Thyagaraja's greatness for me is encompassed in that one pallavi. So yeah.
So beautiful, isn't it? I mean, it's amazing to hear each of your perspectives and to build on. We are just trying to find out more treasure out of a large treasure chest. Again, it's beautiful. The mudras, like every composer will have their name in the composition. But what is so special about Thyagaraja's mudras in all his compositions?
Thyagaraja is actually the Lord of Lord Shiva, who's actually portraying, he's the one who, speaks, taught the efficacy of the Lord Rama mantra, so he actually, it is again related to he being a Rama Bhakta. He is always, Thyagaraja has always been used in his compositions, showing Rama Bhakti. And his mudras, there can be a lot of, he's using it in all the Navavidha Bhakti to use his compositions. If you actually see, he's using, if you take the Kirtanam, Navavidha Bhakti, if you take Kirtanam as one of the Navavidha Bhaktis, where he says, Thyagaraja Ge Yudu, Thyagaraja Geya. Then he says, Archanam Thyagaraja Archita Ineta Unara Thyagara Kararchita, he says. And you have Smaranam, where you Thyagaraja Cheyu Nama. Then he says, Thyagaraja for Archanam, I said Thyagaraja Pujita also comes. Then Thyagaraja Vanditaya, Dasyam. If you actually see Dasyam, Sakyam, where he uses Thyagaraja Sakha, Mitra, these compositions are there where he uses it in a different way to portray his bhava, of bhakti, of Atmanivedanam. In many of the compositions, you can see such changes in the mudra. Apart from using his name as Thyagaraja, he actually brings it in such a beautiful way to portray various other things through Sambodhanam. Yeah.
So actually, I second Vidya madam. So she has given us this thing. So Lord Shiva saying, Sri Rama Rama Rameti Rame Rame Mano Rame Sahasranama Taptulyam Rama Nama Varana. In the Vishnu Sahasranama after. So saying the Rama name itself is equivalent to chanting the 1,000 names. So there is one composition also there. Bhajana Seyarada. There is Thyagaraja says, Thyagaraja Manavini Vini Tarakamagu Rama Nama Bhajana Seyarada. So that's what conveys the same. So you listen to the Thyagaraja and you chant the Taraka Namam. So that's what this Thyagaraja Mudra is said. And also there is I don't want to say that, but there is a disputed Kirtan of Thyagaraja. So that is what Sri Gananadam Bhajamyam. So in the Ragam Kanakangi. So where we can see a Guruguha Mudra in Thyagaraja Kirtan. So first, Sri Guruguha Agrajam Agrapujyam. So their line is there in the Anupallavi. Sri Gananadam Bhajamyam. It's a Thyagaraja composition, but interestingly, we can find the Guruguha Mudra. So perhaps it might be due to some why, because we know that Dikshita visited Thyagaraja's house and he composed Mama Pattabhirama. So what I feel is, so Thyagaraja has also inspired from that, and he might have used the Guruguha for referring Murugan.
I think one of the things I observe with a mudra is the usefulness around understanding what was the sort of life, the experiences, the circumstances surrounding a composer. And I think for that sort of tracing, Tyagaraja's compositions are extremely useful because he's never inhibited himself from expressing what sort of a emotion, what sort of a circumstance he's in when he found Lord Rama from the lake versus when he lost him. So it's that to me is a very, very useful source of beautifully tracing his life. And then, of course, people have certain controversial views of, does using of a mudra indicate a certain sort of, the composer's drive to have sort of their own mark or their own sort of legacy and things. And I think at least my view is Thyagaraja never asked us to sing his compositions. He sang his compositions for himself. It was his interaction with Lord Rama that he had in his life. And I think every composition, as Vidyaji said, where he's talking about Thyagaraja Archita or Thyagaraja Pujita, it's his expression that he's conveying towards Lord Rama and saying, I'm doing this towards you. So I think putting that in perspective is really important while we assess why a composer employed a mudra.
Fantastic.
I think Umaji perfectly prefaced the point that I wanted to make. So since we're on the topic of Thyagaraja Archita, if we look at Nada Dinamata, so I feel like, Tyagaraja's placement of his mudra, I mean, to the layman, just, Thyagaraja using his own name as the mudra might seem very simplistic, but I feel like there is so much more at play there. Because like Vidyaji said, it is Thyagaraja could refer to the composer. It also refers to the context behind why the composer was named Thyagaraja. So we have Thyagaraja giving us, very relatable life situations. Like if we look at the Charanam of Nada Dinamata, it couldn't get more colloquial. Talaku vachina bada, talapaga kujetu. So it's like we literally talk like that nowadays. So it's like talapaga vandadu pochu. We say that in Tamil. So and we have this stark contrast. We could map that to Thyagaraja relating this to his own life experience, like Umaji said, or we could extrapolate this to the Supreme, to Thyagaraja himself, Lord Thyagaraja. So I feel like Thyagaraja gives us the dichotomy of these experiences of the mortal charting their way through life, as well as Lord Thyagaraja himself bestowing his blessings and his kataksham on Tyagaraja's life experience, on the mortal Tyagaraja's life experiences. So that is my takeaway from Tyagaraja's very apparently simplistic use of the mudra, but not so much.
Fantastic.
So referring to the Lord Shiva, there is a one context of Bhajana Seyarada in the Raga Mathana. There is a one composition. So there Thyagaraja says, Thyagaraja Manavini Vini Tarakamagu Rama Nama Bhajana Seyarada. So that's what I felt. So everywhere, so mudra is what I feel is like contextual based. And like Umaji has also said that, so Thyagaraja has sung for himself. Yes, you can see in any of the Thyagaraja composition, either he is conversating with his own mind, Manasa. You will find Manasa in many of the compositions. Or he will say Sri Rama. So either he is conversating to Rama, or either he is conversating to his own mind. It is not like Thyagaraja is making 100 people to sit before him and he is teaching something. So what he is doing is, it is his experience is his message. So his life and his experiences are his message.
It is like yad bhavam tad bhavati, he is considers the Lord as his own friend. Thyagaraja apta, that is one of the mudras. And Thyagaraja paksha, that means the Lord is taking his side,
Right.
taking sides, and his bhavam is reflected in each of the mudras that are there
And
in the
also
composition.
Sharanagati, right? Complete surrender.
Yes, and Thyagaraja Palaka also. You are the caretaker of me. So there are many such examples we can quote.
Fantastic. I want to briefly touch on this aspect of yamakam that he uses in his compositions. Yamakam, which I understand, is using the same word again and again, but repeatedly in different places in his compositions. I'd love to hear your views on this.
Yamakam is used, my guru, Professor Radha Venkatachalam, has often, brought out this and thing which I've just made note of. There is a pattern which is there, like yati pattern, and also use of the same word with different meanings. So in that, one of the compositions that are there in Deva Manohari, I will just pull out that thing, because there is beautiful raga where the word raka is being used with different meanings in the charanam part, which is so interesting to note. I will just bring that out.
Please.
While others can just add the point, I'll just so the word is saketa niketana, which in the charanam he says rakendu mukha. Then the raka word keeps on coming many times. Raka, rake, mikula, raka, a minor, then rara, keshava. Even the sandwiching of the word raka between two words, like how Muthuswami Dikshidhar usually does it well, making a raga mudra. This word raga, rara keshava, Sri Thyagarajanuta Shubha Charita is there. This can be noted very well in this composition, Saketa Niketana.
Beautiful.
I would say another very, very pertinent example of Thyagaraja's usage of yamaka is every mata, evergreen, every mata, and then we have the last two words of the Pallavi, which is bhali bhali. So I would say without those that repetitive usage of the bhali bhali, there we don't get the tone or the of that sarcasm and irony that Thyagaraja is using there to say that, oh, like, I thought, like, who has stopped you from coming here? Every mata vinavo. So, we don't have that tone coming out there without that usage of the bhali bhali, and he is very melodically, very aptly done the bhali bhali. So even melodically, he has interspersed that bhali bhali very aptly to present that the entire tone. It sets the tone for the whole composition. That tone of sarcasm, irony, and frankly, just viewing Rama as a friend. Like I think one of the panelists spoke about this in an earlier point. So we see this coming through, and the yamaka is a very salient feature in bringing this out. This tone of friendliness, of irony, of sarcasm that underpins the whole composition of Every Mata, which is evergreen in Tyagarajar's explorations in Kambodhi.
That's a wonderful observation. Thank you so much, Aarti.
You have said about yamakam means usage of the same word for conveying different meanings or that. So, but I could not explore much into the Tyagaraja's composition, but there is a Todi composition is there. Koti Nadu Dhanush Koti lo Mundaga. So, say the Anupalla is there. Sutiga Syama Sundara Murtini Mati Mati Pujinche Maharaju Lamu. So Mati Mati means every time, every now and then. So there are great people who are worshipping them. So for them, so beyond Lord Rama, so what is there in worshipping in the holy rivers? So that's what the conveying of meaning. So there, so he would have used, so Tyagaraja would have used like every time, but he has stressed the time Mati Matiki, means every now and then. So there I can find the stressing of the uses of the Yama, Mati Matiki, using say Maharaju.
And I think another example to which I think is very popular is Balakanakamaya Chela. So the expression on Rara Devadi Deva, Rara Mahanubhava, it's very reinforcing. And I think that's sort of one of the ways in which he has used, also building on Artiji's point, reinforcing of messages or reinforcing the emotions, which is how I experience his employment of Yamakam.
Fantastic. I think the concept of Yamakam has been beautifully explained by all of you, and it's been such a learning experience for me as well. So thank you so much. As performing musicians, what is the kind of emotion that evokes when you perform on stage, particularly his compositions?
I think this is carrying forward from Umaji's point from one of the earlier ones, the due diligence given to the sahityam without forcing or without rushing the melody or the sahityam. I feel like this whenever I embark on a Thyagaraja Krithi, the first what I experience first is ease above all. So experience an ease in singing, and nothing is forced, and I don't feel like additional sahityam is being forced into that given melody without the scope for it being there. And this also provides beautiful forays into manodharmam, like Neraval. Most of, if we look at a kacheri, if we look at a concert, 75%, I'd say, a very rough estimate off the top of my head, 75% of kritis that we sing in the concert that can be developed or that has the scope for manodharma development would probably be Tyagaraja's kritis, and there is obviously a reason for this. It's because Tyagaraja has not forced the melody or has not forced the sahityam into the melody. He has let there is ample space for exploration, and this provides a beautiful canvas for Neraval especially. So because for Neraval, if we have extremely dense words right next to each other, it makes it very difficult for expansion and development beyond the given structure of the kriti itself, of the paddhati itself. So for us to really use that as a springboard and do our own manodharmam and do our own interpretations of it, Tyagaraja has given us a wonderful I would say collection and masterpieces. All of his compositions. When we want to look at Manodharma Sangeetam, when we want to look at the different edupus, give us massive scope for doing kritis, for doing Manodharma and kritis that are in probably the Deshadi Talam, which is the Vandratalli, or maybe if even on the Samam, or even like the Anagata edupu or the Madhyadi Talas. So he has given us a wide scope of kritis, with all of them having an underlying common thread of ease, is what I'd say.
I think if I build on what Artiji said on Neraval, one of the things with the employment of Telugu is, I think, that you don't have to close your mouth on a lot of end syllables, which makes it very easy to sing Neraval. So, Bhama, Mani, Janaki, Saumitri. You can elaborate as much. There is a lot of space, and there are no closed syllables. I'm not saying closed syllable is necessarily a limitation, but it can become slightly challenging. And we observe that in compositions, like when it's bhaje, hum, people will expand bhaje, hum, oh. Yeah. And it's very it depends how a listener would experience it. But in Tyagaraja's case, that ease comes because of the language use and the syllables, which are more open-ended. So I think that is one thing I personally enjoy in a Thyagaraja Kriti while picking them up in concerts. I think the second thing is the ability to choose compositions which can suit an array of different circumstances. So whether you're doing a temple concert, or if you're doing a proper, a sabha concert, or if you're in a different city, or if you are, the most recent experience we had was you were in an old age home. And how can you pick compositions which basically speak to the audience? That way, Tyagaraja's compositions give you a lot of optionality to choose from. And same for whether you are in a kacheri or are you in a place where, if you're in a sadas where people really want to listen to some heavy compositions, or if you are in a place where people have the mood more for Divyanamams, those or Utsava Sampradayams. So you can choose a lot. So that choice is very comforting from Tyagaraja's compositions. And to Artiji's point, the ability to actually elaborate on Manodharmam also for swarams. I think Thyagaraja compositions are very beautiful for doing patterns because the lyrics have the patterns as well. So I think that kind of gives us a lot of scope as well. So those are some points.
I would just like to agree with what Umaji said. I think she phrased it very beautifully. That I mean, when it comes to Neraval, it is. I actually come to think of it, I never thought about it in that sense. That we don't close our mouths too much when we sing Thyagaraja kritis, and this would especially be an obstacle when we're doing Madhyamakala Neraval. So when we're trying to, especially if it's spaced out and if there are a lot of endings, it would definitely be an obstacle in doing Neraval because we can't expand or elaborate on that particular section of the Sahityam at all then. And that wouldn't really be appropriate for singing Neraval anymore because it wouldn't sound aesthetic or it might even change the meaning. So yes, in Sanskrit, while that might be a limitation because we have endings in most of the words, in Telugu, yes, definitely that is an advantage. And Thyagaraja has tapped into this advantage and used it to the best of its abilities.
Fantastic. Such a beautiful analysis, and thanks for sharing your experience. I mean, it's all the more lovely to hear from you as performing musicians.
Everyone panelist is a performing artist. So excuse me that I am just a one who I can describe myself as a great connoisseur of a music. So I have been, I'm not even a formal learner to a music. So just so I became an ardent Rasika, and then I have been enjoying the nectar of music produced by various performing artists. So thanks to the YouTube and other social media, so who has given us a great rich repertoire of the great masters collection. So what I say in the Thyagaraja composition is there. So the Neraval, even one line is also a subul. If you consider, I am citing an example of Madurai Mani here singing Sarasa Samadana Bheda Danda Chandra in the Ragam Kapi Narayani. He just sings Hitahu and then he does the Neraval. So there is no need for the full sentence like Hitahu Matalanto Vaga Paliki TV. Just the one word Hitahu, you can see that the Neraval is being possible. So that is because of, like Aarti madam earlier I said, that there is an ease. So while rendering the Tyagaraja's composition, so due to that ease and like Uma madam also has said about the closing of links for each time. So it makes a simplicity, and also it. So what I feel is the narrative, it conveys the mood or the emotion of the composer. So for example, there is a Mukhari composition is there. Yantanine Varnitunu Shabari Bhagyam. So there the narrative is Kannulara Sevinchi Kammani Balamuna Saki Kamara Sevinchi Kammani Balamuna Saki. So just the one line, so it reflects the mood of the composer. So that's what is about my idea.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Regarding Neraval, almost all points have been covered so very well by Aarti, Uma, and Shastri Garu. But the thing is, when you're choosing the Neraval line, there are a lot of options available in compositions for us to choose an appropriate Neraval line, which is complete in meaning. For example, if you look at most Vidwans, if you take up a simple composition like Ramani Samanam Evaru, we have Paluku Paluku Lakutene Loluku Mataladu. That is the composition line because it's musically very attractive. So those who would like to choose a musically attractive charana phrase for Neraval may do so. But if you are going to be concentrating on the meaning, I would choose the Pallavi line when Ramani Samanam Evaru. Ramni Samanamevaro Ni Samanamevaro Ramani. There's a lot of scope to go in a Yati pattern while doing the Neraval itself, which it lends itself. Same thing if you take a composition in Kalyani like Eta Unnara, you do have Sita Gauri, which is also not complete in meaning. But if they add the next sentence, you can do Sita Gauri is a very beautiful Anupallavi line for us to do the Neraval with ease. It is the goddess's name and you can just explore Kalyani very, very well. But then Sita Gauri Vagishwari Yenu And then where does he reside? Is he residing in all these goddesses is what Tyagaraja is asking. So a suitable Nerval line. So when you do a Nerval of that line, we are supposed to add the next line also just to complete the meaning. And you can go on, in fact, the Charanam line would be more appropriate. Shri Karudagu Tyagaraja Kararchita would be a more very simple line to do but many people do take only Sita Gauri and then just leave it there, And so in order to complete the Nerval line, so there are options to choose wisely, which will be musically and meaningful Nerval lines to take in a composition.
Such a beautiful analysis. Thank you all. The Pancharatna Kritis, besides all the amazing compositions of Thyagaraja, the Pancharatna Kritis, they stand out. I want to hear your perspectives, each of yours, as to what makes it so distinct. I know that itself could be, a topic for discussion, but if you could briefly share your perspectives on why do you think that this stands out so distinctly amongst all his compositions so far?
I'd like to just make one point about the structure. Structure, if you look, it is a mixture and amalgamation of a Swarajati, a Kirtana, and a Krithi because of the multiple charanas. But the multiple charanas have different dhatu, so therefore it does not fall completely into the bracket of Kirtanam. It's a debatable thing. But like Swarajati, we sing Swara and Sahitya, so it falls under, it is like a Swarajati also. So it's a combination of all this makes it very, very attractive, suitable for congregational singing, as we all do in all the Goshti Gayanam that is there. Apart from that, each of the kritis has it, so it's a gem in itself, and there's so many aesthetic points which I'll let the others pitch in. So this is just to talk about the structure of the composition, which is so well thought of and composed.
Thank you, Vidya.
Now, I think for me, one of the things I observe, especially, for example, in Sadhinchane Manasa, very elaborate storyline of Bhagavata. So that sort of scope, I think, is very informative. That I personally enjoy a lot. So something I look for in compositions is where is the depth of, does it kind of tie into a lot of different stories, etc. So that especially the third Pancharatnam, and then also in the fourth one, that Gala gala manumukha gala galigina Sita kulu kuchunor Ora kannulanu joochi ninnu Ora kannala, how she saw from the corner of her eyes, how she saw Rama. Very delicate instances that he has picked. I think that to me stands out. And then second in this, the Sri Ragam. In that Pancharatna Kriti, it tells us how Thyagaraja has handled Sri Ragam, because there is no Padani Pamariga. That phrase is not there. He has not used that. Similarly, in Arabi, Sanida, Sada, he's used, if you see how Arabi has gone versus how he versus Dikshitar have used, it's a very, very good elaboration and a good example to pick to be able to kind of compare with other composers. So those are some characteristics from the Pancharatna Kritis.
Yeah, that was very, very well put. And I would just like to make some points. It's that, yes, one of the points that was mentioned was we actually have a variety of structures. It's called kritis, but we have the Swarajati kind of structures, and Sadhinchane to me kind of resembles a varnam, because you have the charanam, the uttarangam charanam, and then you have swaras and sahityas that keep going back. So it kind of resembles a padavarnam, in fact. And you also have this Ganaraga usage, which is primarily what makes it so beautiful and striking. So while you have this melodically and lyrically, you have this amazing storyline going on for each kriti that is so beautifully taken through its course, and then we come back to the Pallavi when we finish. And to elucidate that further, you have these beautiful sparkling spuritams with these Ganaraga usages that you have that bring it out further. So I don't know whether it was a calculated usage of Ganaragas or whether it was just his compositional genius as a Vagyakara that he managed to amalgamate the Ganaragas with this amazing storyline that he brought together, which just took it to the next level altogether, which is why if we talk about Pancharatnams today, out of all of the Pancharatnams that Thyagaraja has composed, Kovur Pancharatnam, Tiruvotriyur Pancharatnam, Thiruvayaru, you have the Pancharatnams there as well. The Ganaraga Pancharatnams really stand out, and I feel like the Ragams, the selection of Ragams is definitely a factor, a very important factor in why we consider these Pancharatnams so striking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also the employment of the Edipa on the little finger samam for Endaro Mahanubhavula is actually a rare thing, which not many compositions of Thyagaraja have this Edipu. It's either Mukkal Edam or Samam or, Atita Edipu also a few compositions only. That's one point which we can bring out on Endaro Mahanubhavulu. And all the Charanas also, it ends here. So it is very very well composed in that sense. Yeah.
And another feature that I recognized, which is what makes it so apt for congregational singing, is actually the distribution of the Sahityam. So none of the words are too stretched out, or none of them are sung too close together. So you have this perfect spacing in between the Sahityams that makes it so amenable to be sung in a goshti without people running into the Sahityam of one word overlapping onto the other. It's so perfectly spaced. So I feel like that really lends itself to congregational singing as well.
In the Krithi of Duduku Gala, if you look at the latter paragraphs, Manasatanu Durlabha Manusunenchi Paramananda Mundaleka Madamatsara Kama Lobha Mohula Kudasudai Mosa Potigaka. If you're going to be listening to that, somebody might think as chaste as Thyagaraja, who was always in the devotion of Rama, how could he write such a paragraph? Which is he reflecting to his life, or he's talking about sometimes this question arises. Many of my students have also asked me, that, it's probably he's looking at the people in the world who are going into being pulled into all these vices. And it's probably we could take it up as an advice as to how to be. Just like in Telia Leru Rama, he says that Vega Lechi Bhuti Muniki Bhuti Pusi, he says that, it is actually it's like Muh mein Ram Ram Bagal mein Churi. There is that sort of a thing. Maybe he's actually reflecting the society and how we should not be, probably in those compositions. That's what I would interpret it as.
That also denotes the amount of brilliance of his vision, even since those times, and bringing in the societal factor as Uma brought in initially at the start of the discussion. Perhaps it was there prior to the Trinity as well, but Thyagaraja emphasized this aspect in a few of his compositions.
What I want to add is like Thyagaraja and the society he has seen. So what I feel that so in Pancharatna, so Durukugala is one of the thing where he has said about what are the different vices one should not do and what are the virtues one should do in order to reach the God, and saying that the Rama is an ocean of kindness. So that's why he said that. So after that, Durukugala Nanne Dora Koduku Brochura. So we will when singing is Duduku Gala Nanne Dora Koduku Brochura. So that is for maintaining Talam, but the meaning is Duduku Gala Nanne Brochura. Dora Koduku Brochura. Dora Koduku means the son of the king Dasharatha. So Dora Koduku is referring to the Lord Rama actually. And so since earlier we made a statement about Thyagaraja's Ekaika Raga composition, and subject to the correction, I feel that in the Gauda Ragam, this is the only composition which Thyagaraja is composed with. Oh. Why? Because in Nati there is a Nimne Bhajana is there. In Arabi we are having Sala Kalaladuna. In Varali we have Marakata Manivanna and 80 Janam. In Sri Ragam we have Namakusumamulache, Namakusumamula. So, but in Gauda, I feel that this is the Ekaika Ragam, which is the Ganaraga Pancharatnam, subject to the correction. So, why? Because there are experts and musicians are there.
Thank you, Shastri, for sharing this. And lastly, what is that one thing that would be a positive takeaway for each of you as a musician and as a mark of respect for the great composer Thyagaraja? But what is a lesson that you've learned, or what is the one good thing that strikes you about his compositions?
Sangeeta Jnanamu Bhakti Vina, it is definitely necessary to strike a balance between bhakti and music. Otherwise, it's all, it's just hollow if you are going to be concentrating on the musicality aspect and let your intellect only. It's a balance between the two. Of course, you cannot become a performing artist or perform Carnatic classical by just getting go into some trance. It's not possible to do that, but a balance is needed for both, and that thing of bhakti, which is so important for a performer, should be carried from whatever. There are many compositions in which he has spoken about how, in Kaddanuvariki, he has told about how Tamburi Suswaramu. So that is important. And he has spoken about Sangeeta Jnanamu, then Nabi Hritkanta Rasana, and he has spoken about how Shobilu Saptaswara. So there are various compositions which teaches us as musicians as to what is the combination we have to go with, which is what I like about his composition. Yeah.
Thank you, Vidya.
So one point I would like to make is like Tyagaraja's great sense of gratitude and humbleness. So when we say about the composition Andaro Mahanbhavulu itself, Andarki Vandanamulu, and then Viduraku Mrukkeda Sangeeta Kovidaluku, he mentions the sages who are the masters of the music. So he is bowing salutations to them. So that so being a great devotee and great composer himself, so he is respecting others. So in the Kaligi Unte Kada, he mentions the Ramadasu, the composer of his previous generations. So he is offering the salutation. And then he himself says that, so there is a composition in Karnataka Behag, Nenendu Vedakudra. So there he says, Ilalo Bhakta Greshula Veshiyai Tyagaraja Pujita. So if Tyagaraja himself is saying that Bhakta Greshula Veshiyai, then think of remaining people who themselves portray as a great Bhaktas. So being a great Bhakta himself, he is not, he is saying that I am in the disguise of a great Bhakta. So that is a key takeaway, that being humble and being down to earth kind of thing. So whatever position you may attain, so that is one key takeaway.
Beautiful.
Since we're taking Thyagaraja's kritis self as lessons that we would like to take away, I would like to bring to the fore Vararagalaya. So Chenchu Kambodi. So I would say the Charanam is it doesn't get more colloquial than that, where Thyagaraja goes off on a rant about, like, there is people don't know that there are so many of these people going around calling themselves experts of raga and laya, and they don't know that in fact this all the nada that is emanating from us is actually the omkara. And I feel like that is a notion that is timeless, because there seems to have been this sense of false pride and all of that way back in the 18th century itself. And I feel like now we are at a time where that is more pertinent than ever. And it is, for me as a young musician, it's very humbling, because I have people around me telling me that I've been singing for so long and I'm singing a certain way, and it's very easy to let that get to your head. And reminding yourself of this line from Thyagaraja, this Sharanam is really instills a lot of humility in you, because it tells you that after all you are just a medium of the nada that is emanating in the universe, and you are nothing but a medium of bringing this to the fore. And it is in fact a privilege that has been bestowed upon you to be able to do this. So you are not a something or a somebody or an XYZ just because you sing a certain way. It is in fact a blessing that has been given to you, and this Pranavanada, this Omkara, has chosen you as a medium to sort of portray itself through, sort of demonstrate and come out through. So I'd say Vararagalaya is a constant reminder for me, and keeps me grounded. Thyagaraja's compositions definitely do that to you. They keep you grounded more than anything. Yeah.
Yes. Very true.
Personal takeaway for me is, I think it is about Nama Sankirtanam, the importance of the divine name. And I think Tyagaraja has emphasized that in so many compositions. Chakkani Rajamarga Mulundaka, Nama Kusumamule, Rama Bhi Rama Ramaniya Nama. So the importance of Kirtanam and the importance of the divine name, and also as a way of putting the path towards the future, where we really think about Kali Yuga and Nama Sankirtanam. I think that's a very personal takeaway for me. Another thing I really appreciate and I'm very grateful to Saint Thyagaraja is how he has given us compositions which can be again used in a lot of different circumstances, and different kind of goals can be addressed, whether it is Nada Upasana, whether it is Nama Sankirtanam, whether it's Divya Namam and Goshti Ganam, whether it is Kacheri Sangeetam. So there is a lot of different purposes that we can sort of look to Saint Tyagaraja's kritis, and I think that sort of variety makes him quite unique.
I mean, this has been such a very enriching experience and discussion. And personally, I've learned a lot about the Saint Thyagaraja. We come to the end of this lively and interactive discussion. No wonder Thyagaraja will always remain, so well etched in not only in our memories, but also, in the minds of all the musicians, or even the minds of the gentle people who happen to listen to his compositions. He was a musical genius, and he will always remain a musical genius to all of us. And I'd like to thank all of you for sharing your valuable insights and making this discussion, more livelier and very interactive. And I'm looking forward to, seeing you all at the virtual celebrations on the 13th and 14th of May at the Birmingham Thyagaraja Festival. Thank you all. Thank you, one and all.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Thank you so much, Chitraji. Thanks, everybody.
Namaskar.
Bye.